injured on the ground when Naruto rushed over, calling his name, exclaiming that this couldn't be happening. He tried to wake him, but worry was evident on his face. A few more people arrived, one of whom was injured Code. Upon seeing Boruto, he remarked that this was completely unexpected. Ida, observing the situation, commented that it was beyond surprising. She also noted that Boruto had been supposed to be Code's precious divine tree sacrifice. She wondered aloud what they were going to do now. Code suggested moving on, which seemed to be their last option. He couldn't help but reflect on how no one had expected Kawaki to regain his karma, let alone kill Boruto. Ida, however, cautioned not to misunderstand her intentions. She made it clear she didn't want to interfere with their goals, but warned Code never to think of using Kawaki as a sacrifice. She would never allow it. Code, without offering a response, decided it was time to retreat. Before leaving, he glanced at Kawaki and remarked coldly that he had truly gone and killed his precious sacrifice. With that, he acknowledged an urgent matter and prepared to leave. He added to remember that acquiring power won't change anything. Kawaki will never be free for the rest of his life. No matter how high someone may rise, they will always be beneath the ones pulling the strings. It's only fair. So just accept it. With that final comment, he kicked another person down to the ground. Code told them that they would meet again later, but before he could move, he was struck by an attack, causing him to fall. Confused, he wondered what had just happened. He thought 𝐬𝐿 had shrunk his claw marks to the point where he couldn't use them to travel. Kawaki arrived, commenting that it seemed Code hadn't understood. He told Code he was in no position to arrogantly speak about the fate of others. Code retorted that he would eliminate anyone threatening Lord Seven's life, even his own brother. He challenged Kawaki, questioning what made him think Code would let him go. As Kawaki walked away, Code rushed to attack him, but Kawaki blocked the strike and delivered a powerful punch to Code. Meanwhile, Shikamaru, who had been lying nearby, rushed to Naruto's side. Naruto was desperately calling for Boruto to wake up and open his eyes. Shikamaru was shocked to see Boruto's condition but tried to offer support, urging him to pull himself together and stay strong. Naruto, confused and pained, asked if he was dreaming. Shikamaru understood that Naruto had come out of Sage mode, and he acknowledged the deep pain Naruto was feeling. Still, he reminded him that the battle wasn't over yet. Naruto, still in disbelief, told Shikamaru that this couldn't be real. He asked Shikamaru to tell him it was all a lie. Shikamaru was about to speak when the explosive sound of the ongoing battle between Code and Kawaki interrupted them. Shikamaru told Naruto that Kawaki had gained the upper hand against Code, and if Code managed to escape, it would be a huge problem. He urged Naruto to snap out of it, reminding him that he was the 𝐽𝐿. Boruto had chosen to protect them all, and now, it was not the time for Naruto to lose his grip. At that moment, Code was injured, and Kawaki was closing in on him. Code realized that at this rate, he was going to be defeated by Kawaki. He struggled to get up, but Kawaki moved to strike him. Code didn't know the person Kawaki was working with, but if they were against Lord Seventh, he had no intention of showing mercy. In a desperate move, Code tore off his own headband, declaring that Kawaki would be his first target. A huge explosion erupted, and through the fog, Shikamaru saw both Code and Kawaki lying motionless on the ground. He wondered what had happened, and why Kawaki had been blown away. As the dust settled, Code managed to rise, lifting Ada in his arms. Ada, confused, wondered if Code had just pulled Daemon through without any warning. Daemon, now conscious, asked where he was. Code apologized for waking him but thanked him for his timely reflection ability. Shikamaru, still trying to make sense of the situation, wondered who this kid was. Daemon, sensing the tension, asked Code who the enemy was, vowing to crush them. Code responded that it was just a wrap-up and instructed Daemon to go back home, assuring him they would talk later. With a sigh, Daemon was summoned back to Ada's lap, where he muttered that it was so boring. Ida commented that Code was making a lot of noise, and she hoped Kawaki would be okay. She made it clear that if anything happened to him, Code would surely regret it. Code, looking at Kawaki lying there, told Ida to relax, his prince was still alive. Ida replied that it was good, but it was really Code who needed to breathe easy. She added that she would hate to send Daemon to dispose of Code, but it seemed like that might be necessary. Code, staring at Kawaki, admitted that he didn't like the situation one bit, but he had to acknowledge Kawaki's strength. It seemed like Code didn't stand a chance against him at the moment. Code then removed his limiters, preparing to restore his full power. With that, he quickly fled the scene. Shikamaru, watching the situation unfold, remarked on Code's retreat. Naruto, meanwhile, continued to look at Kawaki, who was still lying motionless. Shikamaru turned to Naruto and said they needed to consider how they were going to handle him. Naruto, puzzled, asked what he meant. Shikamaru explained that Code had killed his own comrade without hesitation, even in that situation. Naruto, deep in thought, wondered aloud if what Kawaki did was truly his fault alone. Shikamaru replied that perhaps not, but sooner or later they might have no choice but to confront Momoshiki's power. The real issue, Shikamaru believed, was that Kawaki would do whatever it took to achieve his goal, and that was something made clear on that same day. Naruto wondered what they should do next, and Shikamaru suggested they might need to drive Kawaki away because he was too much for them to handle. However, Shikamaru quickly dismissed that idea, saying they had other villages to consider. He didn't plan to abandon their responsibilities, which was why they needed to think carefully about what to do. Shikamaru also pointed out that there would likely be backlash within Konoha, as there had already been negative reactions to Kawaki's actions. Naruto, however, told him that Boruto considered Kawaki a brother and that he was practically part of their family. No matter what Kawaki did or what anyone said, Naruto would stand by him. He asked that if her family can't support him in a time like this, so who else will? Shikamaru, in disbelief, asked if that was how Naruto truly felt, and if he considered Kawaki family in his heart. He then urged Naruto to stop, reminding him that Kawaki had killed Naruto's son. Just then, Boruto opened his eyes and weakly wonders who was killed. Both Shikamaru and Naruto were stunned to see him alive. Naruto, still in shock, replied that it was so rude of you to write him off like that. Overcome with emotion, Naruto hugged Boruto tightly. Shikamaru was equally shocked, thinking to himself that it was impossible. He was certain Boruto had been daping 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷𝐻𝐿 But when Boruto took off his clothes, there was no wound to be found, leaving Shikamaru utterly stunned. Boruto then turned to Momo and asked that what was going on there. Momo explained that the loss of his vessel would result in the instant extinguishment of his soul, just as it had with Ishiki. He explained that being a receptacle for one's soul, a vessel also served as its anchor to the world of the living. Referring to Boruto, he called him as Momo's soul, the priceless vessel, and she couldn't afford to lose him for his own sake. Boruto, his wounds healed, was confused and asked what he had done. Momo explained that part of his heart and lungs had been destroyed, and he had lost a significant amount of blood, which would have led to his death. But Momo hadn't interfered at first. He recalled how Shikamaru had been encouraging Naruto, urging him to pull himself together. It was at that moment that Momo had healed Boruto. He then stopped, his tone becoming serious as he clarified that he resuscitated him using part of the karma. Boruto, still confused, asked what the karma was. Momo went on to explain that as he knew, his karma contained all the data from the 𝐽𝐻𝐸 compressed and stored within him. About 82% of this data had already been extracted and diffused throughout his body. Momo's resurrection of Boruto had only become possible once the remaining 18% was extracted. However, he added, this would not have been possible if the vessel Boruto had been destroyed before then. That was why he had no choice but to rewrite that final 18% into his data, allowing the cells and tissue that had been lost to regenerate. Boruto, trying to understand, asked if he was saying he used the part of the karma meant for his body to revive him. Momo explained that, unfortunately, Boruto taking away the 18% of data had made it impossible for his to resurrect him. Boruto, realizing the gravity of the situation, asked if that meant he had won, as his resolve to die had prevented his resurrection. Momo told him not to get too excited, as the reason he was speaking to him now was to impart a warning. He clarified that whether rewritten or not, the data originally came from the 𝐽𝐻𝐸, so there was no change in the fact that all 100% of the 𝐽𝐻𝐸 data had been extracted. This meant that Boruto had now become a pure, genuine, and complete 𝐽𝐻𝐸. And that could only signify one thing: he was now ready to be sacrificed to the 10 tails. Code would soon realize this as well. Boruto, still processing, asked if she was implying that he could be fed to that monster at any time. He said it might save her the trouble of hunting him down. Momo told him to stop the cocky act and reminded him that his return to life was not something that would ever happen again. Next time, there would be no coming back. Boruto, reflecting on something he had said before, asked if this was what he meant when he told him those blue eyes would eventually take everything from him. Momo began to laugh, telling him it wasn't like that. He couldn't even see how that would come to pass, but it was coming, and when it did, it would be a real spectacle. He continued laughing as the scene shifted. Meanwhile, Ida and Code were discussing Amato, who was being protected in the middle of Konoha. Ida wondered how Amato could be so safe with not a single claw mark on him, and she questioned how Code would get near him. Code reassured her not to worry, as he had already taken the necessary measures. Sarada stood with Amato and 𝐽𝐻𝐸 in front of Boruto. Amato asked if Boruto was implying that he had been resurrected. 𝐽𝐻𝐸, equally confused, questioned if that was even possible because of the karma. Boruto nodded and explained that it was what Momo had told him. He acknowledged that he couldn't blame them for being skeptical. He then looked down at his hand and continued, saying that around 82% of Momo's data had already been extracted, but Momo had used the remaining 18% to reconstruct the damage of his body. Katasuke, trying to make sense of it, said that since they had already figured out how to digitalize components of their own flesh, converting that data into another person's components wasn't too far-fetched though, no matter how mind-blowing it sounded. Amato, contemplating the situation, explained that if Boruto had died, Momo would have lost his vessel and his soul would have been extinguished. Even an Otsutsuki couldn't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Momo had sacrificed part of himself to save Boruto and escape the destruction. Sarada, understanding the implications, agreed. She explained that while Momo's soul remained intact, it meant that Momo lacked the necessary data to reconstruct his body,